Hi, this is Amy, and I am coming to you with my thoughts on Module 3. The first thing that I think I should share is that Professor Wedge, I don't know how to say his last name again, is fascinating. I loved looking at the whole Web 2.0 and YouTube generation through his anthropological lens. I thought he provided some really unique commentary. A couple of things that stuck with me. I love the statistics that he showed in the beginning of um, his the Web 2.0 video. I thought that was really interesting. A little sad at the lack of actual reading and writing that students are reporting, but just the sheer amount of time spent utilizing technology. I mean, it really gives a nice finger on the pulse of where students are and in what ways they give and receive information. Um, I loved also what he had to say, the whole YouTube that he's doing with his undergrad and graduate students. It's interesting to me just how fast some of these concepts spread and what impact it had on lives, from a webcam in your bedroom to the Today Show, um, or even like his collaboration with the person in Africa for music for his Web 2.0 video, just how seamlessly that was able to take place with YouTube. Um, I think that the other thing that really resonated with me from his lecture was everything about user generated content and how we're essentially teaching computers to recognize information and to group it. I thought that was really interesting. I've read a couple of articles recently on artificial intelligence, and in my world, that's a science fiction movie, but the reality is that all of this user generated information and input is actually serving just that purpose. So it's a little further, or rather a little closer um, than I thought. It's not science fiction. It's this generation today. As far as the implications of that as a teacher, I, I don't know. It struck me. One of the things that also hit me pretty hard was the teacher at the chalkboard. And I thought, with all the technology, the students sitting out there with their laptops looking at PowerPoints, they're kind of able to just glaze over the screen, whereas that teacher actively engaged with that chalkboard, the students are having to be a little more active listeners. Does that learning style appeal to everyone? No, but it does appeal to some people. I just think that, sometimes in an attempt to connect more with material and making it so digital, that maybe we are taking um, from the learning of those that need that active engagement of physically writing things out and all of that. So I don't know all of the implications, but I do know that this is the generation that we're going to be teaching, whether our goals are in public, pre-K through 12th grade or through higher education. Our students are going to be using these digital means, and this is where they're going to spend their time. We may, have to compete with that. So it's going to be worth knowing how to reach the students, be it a podcast or a web page or interactive lectures or something along that lines. Speaking of podcasts, I really enjoyed this podcast. It's called The Cult of Pedagogy, and today I listened to a podcast on timed math tests. I have a kiddo with ADHD, and given free reign on a math test, it's really complicated for him. And one of the things last year in a parent meeting that I suggested to the teacher was try timing him. I've done it at home with math facts just to see how he'd respond, and he does really well. Um, and she used that as an incentive with him. He's a super bright kid, and she said, James, if you do this in 10 minutes, I have a surprise for you. You get 90% right. He said, so I did it in 5 minutes, got them all right, and she let me go to fourth grade. So she let him go to the next grade up, and finish out the math class with that teacher and her students, but the timed incentive, or maybe it was the timing plus the incentive that worked for him, but he didn't know what he was working for. So I know, at least in that day, that the timed math test was successful. As far as social networking in school, no, just no. Not at least as a means of teachers giving information. Are the students going to be using Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook? Although my teenagers tell me Facebook's for old people. YouTube. They're going to be using it, but as far as using it on school property, school computers or school issued Chromebooks or whatever the case may be, no, and that's just because user generated content is not filtered in any way, and I think that could put the school at some sort of liability, with what the students are looking at. Even pornography, there's a Pinterest. Pinterest is one of those websites, I thought it was for birthday party crafts, but the reality is you're 2 clicks away from some pretty serious porn. And I came about that through a mom with a really hard story, and it scared the heck out of me as far as my own teenage sons. So they thought I was a little crazy when I came to them and said, no Pinterest. I guess they won't be pulling any dinner recipes for me anytime soon. And the rest of the information in this module, one of the things, cloud bookmarking, I looked a little into Dig. I'd have to dig a little more, pun intended. My first thoughts on that were I could really waste a lot of time doing this. And I think, that's what I'm going to close with, is saying that is all of this a great way to get information? Absolutely. The caution is going to be, though, is wasting, great amounts of time doing this, and, as teachers asking ourselves, what is this going to take away from instruction or even from our personal lives, just spending so much time utilizing, podcasts, social media, YouTube, all of this. It's going to be interesting to see, what that looks like long term. I don't know. Have a good one.